Shadow and Work Pension Secretary Mel Stride, the latest to join the race. He follows James Cleverly, Tom Tugendhat, who was on the show yesterday, and Robert Jenrick, who I think is leading the polls at the moment, isn't he? Robert Jenrick seems... Yeah. No, what are you...
What was that face?
What's that... Ian! We needed expression cam.
I don't know where that poll came from, but I would be very surprised if that were true.
Yes.
Who are you rooting for?
I'm not rooting for anyone. I want to see what they all say. I think it's very interesting because, I mean, I know them all, and they all have sort of positives. Some of them, shall we say, have some negatives.
Interesting.
And I think the main thing is that they've all got to try and explain how they're going to adapt conservatism to the 21st century. And so far, we haven't heard a lot of how that will happen.
Mel Stride. Should we talk to Mel Stride?
I think we should.
Let's find out. A very good morning to you, Mel Stride. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Very pleased to be on your programme. I think I was a regular attendee during the general election.
I think you were on 7 times.
7 times.
During the
campaign. I got the golden boot, I think. I just went streeting, I think.
Same tie every time, I see. Is this your lucky tie?
Yeah, maybe it is. I don't know. We're going to find out, I suppose, in the next couple of minutes.
Well, let's see. I'm going to ask a very basic question. It's an important one.
Yeah.
Why do you want to be leader of the Conservative Party at this point?
I care about my party and I care about my country. This is a moment in my party's history of acute crisis. It's a moment when, if we're going to move forward, we need to firstly unite, particularly the parliamentary party, and I think I'm in a good position to do that in terms of my political positioning, but also in terms of the relationships I have across the party. I was chair of the Treasury Select Committee and leader of the House of Commons, which is about reaching out, in those cases, actually across the whole of Parliament. And I think I would be also well-placed, actually, to drive the change. And to Ian's point about, you know, this has got to be about the future and how we're going to do that, well, we have got to reinvent and refashion the Conservative Party going forward. I have a background in growing companies and business. I went into Parliament in my later 40s with that experience, and at the Department for Work and Pensions, of course, drove major welfare reforms that have saved billions of pounds.
You may have had some success. You may have
the
had
opportunity of going to work.
Mel Stride, you may have had some success in business. You were Rishi Sunak's, I think, campaign manager. The last election for the Conservatives was a disaster. How do you run on that track record?
So I think there were a number of things that Rishi did that were absolutely right, stabilising the economy, for example, after that mini-budget, and getting the economy back on track, getting to the point where we're the fastest-growing economy now in the G7 was a tremendous achievement. But undoubtedly, particularly in the campaign itself, major mistakes were made. But look, I'm a team player. I appeared on your show 7 times when, you know, one had a choice in life. One could either stand up and take the bullets and put your head above the parapet and go out and fight for our party, or go off and do something else. I chose to do the former, and I did it because I cared about people winning their seats and having the best possible outcome for the Conservative Party in that election. So I am a team player, and I make no excuses for that.
You almost lost your seat, though, didn't you? I mean, what's your majority in your constituency now?
It's 61, so
yes,
it's very tight.
61.
Correct, 61.
It's one of the tiniest majorities in Parliament. I mean,
yes.
If your constituents left you in droves and by the skin of your teeth you kept your seat, that's a really strange situation to find yourself in, isn't it? To think that you can run the party and yet in your own constituency you lost an enormous majority and you were left with 61.
Right, OK. Well, the fact is that I won. If you look at where I was in the target list order, my seat should have been swept away. I managed to hold on, and I held on through showing the same fight that I've just described to you in terms of being out there and fighting for my party and every vote in that general election. But look, we've got to raise our aspirations beyond just retaining seats like mine that in previous elections have come home with majorities at one point above 20,000, and in the last election before last, about 17,500. So it's going to be less about my seat. It's going to be about many other seats that we've lost that were considered extremely safe and making further gains. But look, if we're going to do that, we've got to get this trust back, which means we've got to get united as a party, and then we've got to get that platform together. on the policy side, but we've also got to be an effective opposition. We can demonstrate and get a hearing with the British public again, who are understandably just not listening to us at the moment, but we can do that if we're an effective opposition, and that means not jumping on every opportunity to rough up the government. It does mean supporting the government when they're doing the right thing, and at times of crisis probably strongly supporting the government, but equally, I know you've just been discussing tax and the autumn budget, absolutely calling them to account when they are basically rolling the pitch now to put up taxes and renege on the promises that they made to the British people during the general election. Now, my background is an economic background. I was chair of the Treasury Select Committee. I was financial secretary to the Treasury.
You'll get an opportunity, you'll get an opportunity to make that case in due course, first of all, to Tory MPs, and then potentially, if you're in the last two, to Tory members. You say you want to build the biggest, broadest church possible, right? There'll be a lot of people who are against you, saying the only way the Conservatives can move forward is by veering to the right. Just give me an example. A YouGov poll midway through the campaign found that a third, 36% of Reform UK voters would have voted Tories. And if Reform wasn't around, you would have won 201 seats, which would have left Labour with a majority of, of only 48 seats. Now, thinking about that, is there not a temptation to look at the other candidates, see where the land lies, and think, right, the only way for the Conservative Party to survive is to listen to Reform voters and look at that agenda and move slowly, if not quite rapidly, to the right?
So what we need to do is we need to have a broad appeal. We have to become that party again that is inclusive, can reach out to the nation as a whole. You're absolutely right. There are many people that went to Reform that would otherwise have voted for us. There are many people that went to Reform who had no intention of ever voting for us, actually. And there were about 17%, I think, in that poll would actually have voted Labour or the Liberal Democrats. Now, what we need to do is we need to reach out and appeal to those voters. We know that issues like migration, illegal migration, like lower taxes are really important issues to those people, but they're also actually important issues to other people right across the political spectrum. Some of the polling for the Liberal Democrats actually shows that it's very clearly an issue that migration is an issue that's of great concern to them. And I don't think we should define tackling those issues as being very far over to the right. These are common ground issues that a lot of people subscribe to. But what we've got to do in addition to that is focus on Labour and the Liberals, and where we're facing into those parties in seats, of course, any vote that we can win back from those parties is worth double the vote that we can win back from Reform. Ian. So we must look broadly at this issue.
Go on.
Mel, I think many people in the Tory party see you as a very safe pair of hands, somebody who could steady the ship, maybe an interim leader. How can you convince them that you've got the sort of excitement, the pizzazz to take the party in a way that David Cameron did in 2005? Because the front runner never wins, or very rarely wins, a Tory leadership contest. You're not the front runner at the moment. How can you get into that position?
So this is a contest, Ian, as you know, not to be Prime Minister yet. It's about leading the opposition, and it is about bringing our party together and fixing something that is fundamentally broken in the Conservative Party. And let me give you one example that illustrates that. If you're leading a party where you have to be 65 years or older to be relatively certain that you're going to be getting more votes for your party than another, that is a deeply, deeply difficult position. There is no quick, magical, ideological square upon which you can leap to solve that. It requires deep work across the party and the wider Conservative family, including the membership, to come up with the fiscally sustainable solutions to that. And that is where I think I will be particularly effective.
Look, you know, you showed your loyalty to Rishi. You've supported him, Rishi Sunak, in his campaign and throughout what was, by any measure, a disastrous electoral campaign. Do you think he's going to return that loyalty to you and support you in your campaign to be leader of the Conservative Party?
I've no idea what Rishi's view will be. I suspect he'll probably want to keep fairly distant from it. I think he'll recognise that this is a new chapter in the party and he'll leave that to happen. But you say loyalty to Rishi Sunak. My loyalty has been to the Conservative Party in the country. When I went out and did all those morning media rounds, more than any other minister of any party in that election, I did it because I cared about my party and I was loyal to my party, and I stood up when You know, others may have decided to look in another direction. That's what I did.
I wonder whether you had a wry smile when, thank you so much, Mr. when we had Tom Tugendhat giving his pitch yesterday on the show, and then it transpired that his slogan had to be changed on social media. Should we just take a look? Yeah. So I'm sure that Mel Stride, being a collegiate fellow, didn't find... Where is it? Do we have it? Ah, right, so... It was Together We Can, unite the party, rebuild trust, defeat Labour. So it's spelt out TURD.
Yeah. And he was in military intelligence.
Which is,
they were like, you know, they should see the patterns and codes.
Yeah.
Who advises the people?
And then it had to be changed pretty swiftly. Yeah. And there's the new one, which says... something else that isn't but it was quite easy.